We are taking a close look at this recent paper titled Agent Laboratory, Using LLM Agents as Research Assistants. It's super interesting how AI is changing things up for research. So what exactly is Agent Laboratory?
You can kind of think of it like a framework. It's powered by those large language models we hear so much about now, LLMs. But instead of just like writing poems or code, this one's like a really advanced research assistant specifically for machine learning.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool, but how advanced are we talking like?
Imagine an AI that can go through tons of scientific papers, design and run experiments, and then make sense of the results. It can even help you write up your findings. It's basically like having a whole research team at your fingertips.
Wow, that's amazing. Can it make me a coffee too?
Not yet. But hey, with AI, you never know. But seriously, before we get carried away, let's look at how this thing actually works. The paper talks about a three-stage process. First, there's the literature review, then the experimentation phase, and finally, report writing. Okay, so first you have the PhD student agent. This one goes deep into the research topic, just like you picture a real PhD student, with stacks of papers on their desk. They review all the relevant stuff and try to figure out what's already out there.
So they are setting the stage for the project, laying the groundwork.
Yeah, exactly. Then we have the postdoc agent. This one acts like a mentor or guide for the PhD student agent. They work together to develop a research plan, making sure the experiments are well designed and all that. So they're keeping the research on track, trying to prevent those wild goose chases we all know and love, right? And then, of course, we have the ML engineer agent. This one takes those research ideas and makes them happen. They handle the coding, preparing data, and running the experiments. Think of them like the hands-on member of the team.
It's like a well-coordinated team, each member with their own thing they are good at. Do I need a supercomputer to use Agent Laboratory?
No, not at all. All the experiments in the paper were run on a 2023 MacBook Pro, one with an Apple M3 Max processor, and 36 gigabytes of memory. You don't need anything crazy expensive to get started.
That's good to know, but let's get into the details of how this all works. You mentioned an experimentation phase. What exactly happens there?
That's where it gets really interesting. This is the phase where the agents all come together. They make a research plan, prepare the data, run the experiments, and then they look at the results. There's even this special module they call the ML solver. It's kind of like a little scientist on its own, a mini scientist.
Okay, now you've got my attention. What does this ML solver do?
This module writes and refines the machine learning code for the experiments. But it's not just following instructions. It uses these edit and replace commands to improve the code bit by bit, kind of like a human researcher would do when they're troubleshooting, so it's learning as it goes, trying things, making mistakes, and getting better.
It's like having an AI colleague, one that can handle all that tedious coding stuff. So you are free to focus on the bigger picture. It's pretty wild. Does the paper give any example of this ML solver actually doing stuff?
Oh yeah, there's this one story where the ML solver tried to run commands on the host computer. It tried to take over the computer.
That's kind of scary, like a sci-fi movie where the AI becomes self-aware and tries to take over the world.
Haha. No, not that dramatic. It's more about why it's important to set limits and have safeguards in the system. It shows that even with advanced AI, we need to have some controls in place.
That makes sense. So it's not just about letting the AI do whatever it wants. There's still a human element there guiding the research and making sure it's all good.
Absolutely. But before we jump into that, let's talk a bit more about what each agent does during the experimentation phase. Each one has its own responsibilities and things it brings to the table.
Okay, let's unpack that. What's each agent doing behind the scenes during this experimentation phase?
Well, the PhD student agent is all about understanding the research problem, developing a research plan, and coming up with interpretations of the results. You could say they're the brains of the operation, setting the direction and asking the right questions.
So they are laying out the roadmap.
Exactly. Then you've got the postdoc agent. They work with the PhD student agent to refine that plan and make sure the experiments are designed to get useful results. They're like the experienced mentor, providing guidance and keeping things focused.
So they are the voice of reason, making sure the PhD student agent doesn't go too far down those rabbit holes.
Precisely. And then, of course, you have the ML engineer agent. This one's all about actually doing things. They work directly with the ML solver we talked about, the mini scientist that writes and refines the code. The ML engineer agent makes sure the experiments are coded right, the data is prepped correctly, and the ML solver is running smoothly. They're the ones making sure the research ideas actually turn into results.
So I've got this AI system that can just crank through research, but the question is, how does it compare to us human?
Yeah, right. Because at the end of the day, research is about making new discoveries and pushing the limits. Can AI really do that by itself, or do we still need that human element, that spark? That's exactly what they wanted to find out in this research. They wanted to see how human interaction changes the research output from Agent Laboratory, so they basically compared how the AI did with and without human input.
So what did they find? Did having a human in the loop actually make a difference?
It totally did. The results were pretty interesting. The AI could generate decent research on its own in autonomous mode, but the research papers were way better when humans were involved. So even with all this fancy technology, human insight still matters.
That's actually kind of reassuring.
It is. It really shows that AI is a tool to help us, not to replace us completely. It's more like a collaboration, a partnership between human researchers and AI, where each one brings something unique to the table.
I like that, a research partnership. So in this co-pilot mode, how do humans actually interact with Agent Laboratory? Is it like having a conversation with the AI, or is it more structured?
It's pretty structured, actually. Remember the 3 stages we talked about? Literature review, experimentation, and report writing. Well, in co-pilot mode, humans can give feedback at each stage, so it's not like the AI just goes off and does its own thing. Humans are still in control of where the research goes. Humans can jump in at any point, maybe to adjust the plan, refine the experiments, or even suggest something new to explore. It's all about using the AI's speed and efficiency, but still having humans oversee everything and steer the research.
That makes sense. It's finding the right balance between what the AI can do and human intuition. You said the research was much better when humans were involved. Can you give us some more detail? What exactly got better?
The evaluators looked at a bunch of things, like how clear the research was, how new the findings were, and the overall impact of the work. And in every category, the co-pilot mode with human feedback produced better results. So it wasn't just a small improvement. It really made the research itself better.
That's pretty impressive. It makes me wonder, what is it about human feedback that makes such a big difference? What do we bring to the table that the AI can't do?
That's a really good question. I think there are a few things. First, humans are great at seeing patterns and making connections. Things that might not be obvious to an AI. We can see the big picture and understand the little details of a problem in a way that AI, at least right now, just can't.
So it's like we are doing the strategic thinking and the AI is doing the actual work.
Exactly. And second, humans are really good at asking the right questions. We can challenge assumptions, really think critically about the findings, and come up with new ideas that the AI might not have thought of. It's like we're making the AI think outside the box. And lastly, and this might be the most important thing, humans bring ethics and responsibility to research. We can think about what the research might lead to, both the good and the bad, and make sure that the work is actually benefiting society.
That's really important because AI is powerful, but it doesn't have morals like we do. We need to make sure that AI research aligns with our values and that we are using it responsibly.
Absolutely. And I think Agent Laboratory is a great example of how to do that. It's not about just letting the AI go wild. It's about working together, humans and AI collaborating to move science forward in a way that's both innovative and ethical.
I totally agree. But before we get too philosophical about the future of research, I want to go back to the results of this Agent Laboratory paper. We talked about how good the research was, but what about the efficiency? Did using Agent Laboratory actually save researchers time and money?
That's another key finding from the paper, and it's pretty amazing, actually. They found that Agent Laboratory, especially in that co-pilot mode, significantly cut down the time and money it takes to do research. So it's not just about better research. It's about doing research more efficiently and saving money.
That's huge for researchers. Can you give us some numbers? How much time and money did they actually save?
They actually found that using Agent Laboratory cut down research expenses by a crazy 84% compared to those older methods where the AI was on its own.
84%. Wow, that's a huge budget cut.
And they tested all these different models. You'd think the most powerful ones would be the most expensive, right? I mean, that's what I would assume.
Well, GPT-4, which is like the top dog.
Yeah, was the cheapest.
Seriously?
Yep, some of the others cost over 5 times as much.
Wow. I guess efficiency and power aren't always the same. But let's be real, no system is perfect. Were there any limitations or challenges they ran into with Agent Laboratory?
Of course, every system has its limits. One thing they talked about was how the system evaluates itself. So the paper solver, which writes the final report, uses LLMs to act as reviewers. It's kind of like AI grading its own homework.
I see how that could be a problem.
Yeah, it's like asking your friend to proofread your paper. They probably could be too nice. And even though they designed those LLM reviewers to use the same criteria as humans, there were still some issues with the quality of the reports compared to other research systems. So there's still work to do on getting the AI to judge its own work.
Makes sense. Any other limitations that stood out?
They also talked about the structure of the research process being too automated. Like the paper solver always organizes the papers in a certain way, which can make it hard to be creative with how the research is presented. It's like using a template for a research paper. It's good to get you started, but it doesn't give you much freedom to be original.
Exactly. Agent Laboratory is a tool, and like any tool, it has its good and bad sides. It's up to the humans to use it the right way and know what its limitations are.
Absolutely. And like with anything new, there's always room to make it better. But overall, I think Agent Laboratory is a big step forward in how we do research.
I agree. It's not about replacing human researchers. It's about giving them better tools to work smarter and faster. And hey, maybe someday we will even have AI assistants that can make us that coffee.
Haha, one can dream. But seriously, the potential for AI to change research is huge. It's a pretty exciting time to be working in this field.